Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, and State Farm. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Thank you, Alec Webb, and welcome everyone to MotorWeek podcast number 211. It's a very special show today.
Oh, really?
It is.
What's
because
so
you're
special?
here, Brian Robinson, our writer-producer. We've also got our online content coordinator, Greg Carlos.
Hey, hey.
And assistant road test producer, Kyle Scanlon.
Hey, everybody.
And in spirit and on electronic, writer, researcher Garrett Zykin. And we'll get more to Garrett in just a minute. Let's talk about what we're going to do today. We're going to run down, we've got the Fiat 500X. We've also got the new EcoDiesel and the Ram 1500. We've got the Audi A6. We've got a lightning round, a viewer question, rant and raves. We've already been talking about that off mic. But first, we have something very special. You've probably heard that Porsche is getting ready to come out with its first production all-electric vehicle. It is named Taycan. It is actually spelled Taycan. The official coming out party is scheduled for September the 4th. Now, we're actually recording this podcast a couple weeks before that. And the reason we're going to talk about it today is because Garrett Zykin had a special opportunity to hop over to Germany and drive a pre-production Taycan. And there's only so much information that he was allowed to deliver, but he can talk about the driving impressions of the car. And he was away today, but we wanted to make sure that you got it first. So here is Garrett on tape of what he has to say about the upcoming Porsche all-electric Taycan.
So we were part of a very small group of auto writers to go to Porsche's research and development facility near Stuttgart, Germany. We were actually among the first to drive the Porsche Taycan. It was a late-stage prototype, so there was still some camouflage outside, more inside, and there were naturally some rules about what we can and can't say. This is what we can say, though. Porsche says the name Taycan originates from Turkic. That's a language spoken in Central Asia. We're talking between the Caspian Sea and China, places like Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. They say the rough translation is the soul of a spirited young horse, which, if you think about it, it fits in with the horse that's on the Porsche crest that's been there for more than 65 years. I can tell you, after driving the Taycan on a winding country road along the German countryside, it definitely has the lively dynamics that easily live up to the name. So I think they did a good job choosing that name. This is Porsche's first electric car. It evolved from the Mission E concept, which was first unveiled at the 2015 Frankfurt Motor Show. We don't have a lot on the specifics, but here's what we do know. It has two electric motors, one on each axle. They generate more than 600 horsepower. All that power goes to all four wheels. Again, it's more than 600 horsepower, so we're expecting it to be above that number. So along the winding road in the German countryside, it really moved like a sports car. It had that low, sporty stance and felt very planted going through the curves. The steering also had the heft of a sports car. So you definitely have a sports car sensation as opposed to what you might expect from an EV. But it is an EV. It has an 800-volt architecture. The energy comes from a battery under the floor. We've seen that before. The range, Porsche says, will be more than 300 miles. Because that battery is under the floor, it has a very low center of gravity. In fact, they say it has a lower center of gravity than the 911. Along with driving out in the countryside, we had some time on the track. Now, one of the rules we had to follow is that one of their engineers did the driving. We were sitting in the passenger seat. But even in the passenger seat, you definitely get a sense of the potent thrust. For those of us who like the torque that kind of throws you in the back of your seat, the Taycan definitely does not disappoint on that point. I don't have a specific torque number, but it felt like a ton of torque. And I'm sure that's an official technical term, a ton of torque. That's exactly what it felt like. The Taycan, it handled again like a sports car on the track. It went through the corners with really unbelievable balance that we've seen from other Porsche products. Part of the opportunity was launch control, which really was an interesting experience. That's where you really got to feel that how strong the torque is. Porsche says the Taycan will go 0 to 60 in significantly less than 3.5 seconds. I didn't have a stopwatch with me, but I believe it. It went by very, very quickly. And at the end of the stretch, the Taycan topped out at 158 miles an hour, which is in line with what Porsche has said. I don't know exactly how long the stretch was, but I know it was 158 miles an hour. It really was a thrilling experience. It really was. As far as sound, EVs are quiet, and naturally, with a sports car, you want to hear the engine, but there isn't an engine in this. So the engineers took that into account, but they were very careful not to make it sound fake or artificial. So this is what they did. They recorded the actual sound of the electric motors, and then they enhanced it. So what you have is a natural sound of acceleration, which really becomes more prominent in the sportier modes, Sport and Sport Plus. But it's not overwhelming. It definitely sounds like it's coming from the back of the car, but it's not overwhelming. And if you don't like it, you can turn it off. I think it does add to the driving experience, but I can see where you may not think so. So you have that option of turning the sound of the motors off. There really is still a lot to learn and experience about the Porsche Taycan. We'll naturally learn more at the world premiere in September, but at this point, I think what remains important is that it looks like a Porsche, it drives like a Porsche, and it absolutely feels like a Porsche.
Thank you, Garrett. Garrett Zeichen, who had a chance to go over to Germany and drive a pre-production Porsche Taycan. Once again, we're recording this podcast before the official release date of September the 4th, when a lot more details will be available, and we'll have those on the podcast that follows this. But I think we can all agree from listening to Garrett's account that it's a very impressive automobile, and probably shows you where the entire performance car business and supercar business is headed when it comes to all-electric vehicles. Anybody that still is under the impression that an electric car is pokey is way off about that. Any other comments from listening to? Was it more or less than what you thought the first impressions of the car might be?
Well, we didn't have a whole lot there to grasp onto, but look forward.
Very few details.
I look forward to driving it.
Yeah, and we will very soon. Okay, let's move on to, unfortunately, something a little bit more mundane, but still on the marketplace, a lot more desirable, I would think. We've got a couple of vehicles that Kyle has recently experienced at press launches. We've got the 2020 Ram 1500 EcoDiesel, and this is a new generation of the diesel engine, and also a reface and revamp of the 2019 Fiat 500X crossover. Okay, Kyle, take it away.
All right, well, I'll start with the Fiat. Fiat was nice enough to bring me out to Manhattan and give me a nice drive along the Hudson River to experience the new engine that they put in the car, which was the big point of being there. So they went from a 2.4-liter down to a 1.3-liter turbocharged engine, and what's really kind of surprising about this is dropping almost half the size of the engine, they gained about 35% more torque in the vehicle, going up to a best-in-class 210 pound-feet of torque. And when you put that in sport mode, you can definitely feel it. And if you are a city driver, which I think is why they brought us to Manhattan to drive in the city and then on the outskirts, was in sport mode, when you have to make those kind of quick and sometimes daring maneuvers to get around a car in front of you or to get in your turning lane, you can really do so. And the car definitely picks up and gets there. And with the all-wheel drive system they have in place, it's a very comfortable ride, and it's definitely keeps that torque very manageable, but also aggressive for a car of its size and style.
What else was new about it? This is mid-cycle.
Yeah, it's just an update. So a couple other things, some new daytime running lights, some rear tail lamps, LED headlights.
Mostly cosmetic.
Yeah, some smaller cosmetic things, not anything that's really big in any way.
I'm assuming that any meaningful changes it gets that the Jeep Renegade will get as well.
They didn't say anything about that.
I'm sure they didn't.
Did you say
they
a
don't like
one?
to talk about that.
Did you say a 1.3 liter?
Yeah, 1.3 liter turbo.
Is it a 4 or a 3?
It's a 4.
Yeah.
Because they had
It's a small 4.
Yeah, was it the same? Alfa
was-
Romeo 4C is it the same from that end?
This is a new.
It's a new 1.3.
They had a 1.4 in it before, so this is actually smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a
what they had
2.4
before.
in it before.
They had a
2.4 naturally
2.4.
aspirated,
Yeah.
1.4
They
turbo.
had a 4 turbo.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a fun car to drive. That's for sure. I've never really driven a lot of Fiats in my day, and I was impressed. I'm not going to lie.
Well,
It was definitely comfortable. So
yeah, they've had a little bit of a hard time getting traction with the 500X. A lot of people want the Renegade, but under the skin, it's basically the same.
You know what's odd is I actually see more 500Ls than I do 500Xs.
Same.
They're
Me
so
too.
roomy inside.
Yeah,
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
well, I guess we got to give people some more credit for practicality. I mean, I think I do because I always assume people want to go for style, and the X looks better than the L.
Man,
but
yes,
you're right,
without
the
question.
L is more
Yes.
comfortable.
Actually, when you look around at, we used to have a lot of, dare we say, compact and subcompact minivan-like vehicles, and we don't have them anymore. And the 500L is one of the few that sort of fits that rough equation of being a big box, but a small big box.
Right.
Okay, diesel.
All right, yeah, next. I was just outside of Duluth, Minnesota, where Ram brought me out to try the new 1500 EcoDiesel. It's the third generation of their EcoDiesel engine. This one offering class-leading 480 pound-feet of torque for the half-ton diesels, and with a towing capacity of 12,560 pounds, which they're also saying is class-leading.
I'm sure especially class. So in other words, it's about half as powerful as their top Cummins diesel as far as torque.
Yes,
that's right.
yes. The last numbers I saw, the top Cummins diesel was around 1,000.
It's 1,000.
So, but yeah, in this, the EcoDiesel, they're offering it in the Ram Rebel for the first time, and it was a lot of fun. I got lucky enough that I got to drive around mostly in the Longhorn edition, so that is a very spacious, very plush interior, and you could basically camp out in that thing for a week if you really wanted to.
Any concept of whether, all right, it's more powerful, but is it smoother? Does it?
Yeah, they reduced the NVH a lot. They said that was complaint, and I don't know necessarily complaints, but it was something that 1,500 owners wanted, was less NVH.
Because they're more interested in probably the niceties of a pickup truck than just towing.
Exactly. So it's about being comfortable while you're towing, not just how much you can tow. And, driving around, it was a really nice car. I also got to drive the Tradesman for a little bit, and I got to take the Rebel off-road. And I was on some pretty steep, pretty hairy inclines where the guys running the off-road course would have me stop in the middle of the hill and just let that thing creep along. And that 480 pound-feet of torque really will bring you up the hill when you need to. Tires start shaking around a little bit and felt like I was going to slide back, but it held true and got me up the hill.
Any other major advances on this truck? I mean, pickup wars are, just absolutely everybody's rabid about what's going on between Ford, GM, and Ram. Any other changes? Any new technology that you're aware of that's on this truck?
Not that I'm aware of. There was some things that the lead engineer had mentioned that were in phrases and words that I didn't quite understand.
Well, at least you're honest.
Well, the engineer was speaking as an engineer, and I am not one. I am a TV guy and a car guy, and so I got to talk to him a little bit. But as at these events, everyone's getting pulled in a million directions by all the different automotive journalists. So I was able to just get a little bit of information out of him, but not a ton.
Were they gloating a little bit that they've taken the number 2 pickup truck spot from Chevrolet?
A couple of chests seemed to be in the air. I'm not going to lie. They were pretty proud of themselves. And, after driving it, I think they should be.
Yeah, it's a good truck. And it sounds like a great engine. All right, let's move on back to Earth and a very car that I think everybody around this office probably likes, the 2019 Audi A6. 3-liter V6 turbo, 335 horsepower, 48-volt mild hybrid system is new to it. They've updated their MMI touch system and now has 2 screens. So what was everybody's impression? I mean, I thought we've always liked the A6. I just thought this was easily the best yet, but in some ways, you didn't think that car could get that much better, and it has.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I was just thinking the same thing. Styling has been a strong point for Audi for the last going on the better part of a decade now. And it gets better. The way they've kind of sharpened up some of the lines. The wheel design now is a massive wheel. I think it was like 21. It might even have been a 22-inch wheel. But it looks big, which isn't always the case.
It didn't ride badly with it.
No, it really didn't. But it's a really, really cool looking wheel design. Inside, it's just filled with all kinds of beautiful looking tech. I would say it probably looks just slightly better than it works. I mean, it works fine, but personally, I'm not a huge fan of the haptics on the lower screen, where it seemed like you have to push things a little bit harder than I'd like to. And that sounds like a real nitpick, and it really kind of is.
Did you use it has gesture control too, doesn't it?
See, I did not use that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It does have it, yeah.
And I'm curious if other people use that. I use it in BMWs only because that when they come in for us, they usually have that prompt that when, say you want to change the station and you do it on the steering wheel, a picture will come up and show you the gesture control. And in that case, I'll at least try it and then never use it again because I just don't
in the
enjoy
BMWs,
it.
I use it for the volume constantly.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you find like it's accurate enough
Yeah,
for
I
you?
find it's pretty accurate. Yeah.
Do people look at you
little
weird
finger
when you do, like, is that guy giving me the finger or like some sort of weird hand gesture?
What about their dual screen do you like that we generally have not liked with others, i.e. Honda and Acura, that have tried it?
Probably placement and just quality of the screen, and I think it's just presented better. The problem I had with Infinities, I think do they still use the two?
They used to. I don't know. I think they went away.
They might have gotten away
I
from
can't
it.
remember.
But yeah, in the past, you'd have one up in like way high on the dash, and then one where the traditional screen position would be. I never really liked that, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that they just didn't look that advanced as far as like graphics. Mm-hmm. This thing looks super advanced, and
yeah, and it's clear, like, you know, each screen has their dedicated role. The bottom one is more, it's not like a touch screen. It's more like just touch panel controls, almost like Cadillac's old Q, but obviously a much better execution of it. Although I'm still not a fan. I would rather have a dedicated touch screen versus like the touch panel kind of type.
That's interesting. And I guess that's what I was talking about, gesture control, that basically, they've gone away from their central controller.
Right.
And I think that's a step backwards since they had the best one out there.
I certainly think so, but not everyone was a fan of the Audi system as much as I was.
Yeah. Well, I think it was we always measured it against BMW and Mercedes. We just thought theirs worked better.
Go ahead. You're ready to go.
It's just interesting that you guys say that about the touchscreen because I actually preferred it to have that. You have to put a little bit more pressure on it, and you kind of almost feel like you press a button. Because in other vehicles that we have, and I'm not going to name names on it, but one of our long terms I just took on a road trip.
Yeah, let's not. No.
And it's almost like if I looked at the touchscreen wrong, it would switch on me and go to something else. And
so too sensitive.
Yeah, too sensitive.
That's an unusual complaint.
Yeah, it was too sensitive. Trying to turn the volume knob, one of my knuckles would barely graze it, and it would either change the station or change it to the map when I wanted it to be on the Sirius XM system.
So you like something that's a little more heavy.
So yeah, I preferred that. Just that little. It almost feels like a vibration when you have to press it and almost get that button sensation.
We have this great performing car, and we have spent 70 or 80% of the time that we're talking about touchscreen.
It's all. I mean, that's where we're at with technology. It's all about the user experience. I mean, you read any press kit on any car. That's going to be the first half of the press kit. Is how their technology is better than everyone else's, and they have this and no one else does. And I mean, that's where we are.
Over the years, though, I am going to talk a little bit about driving. We've always looked at, especially the BMW 3 Series, as sort of like the benchmark and either compact or mid-size sports sedans. But man, the A6 is just such an amazing car to drive. There's a lightness to the car that Audi has always had, and it's kind of runs against the grain. It's light on one aspect, but you feel extremely solid and safe in the other. And I thought they had notched up this car another big level. So
We did have the upgraded sports suspension,
True,
which
we
should
did.
be noted.
yeah,
And,
because you might not get that same experience.
and
right
they continue.
out of the box.
They constantly update the Quattro system. You know, it gets more and more rear biased. It seems as they go, which certainly adds to the handling characteristics.
And adding the 48 volt mild hybrid system is going to set them up to add a lot more technology in the future.
It's quick, very quick.
Okay, lightning round. We've all got roughly 30 seconds to talk about a topic, and Kyle's may or may not ring the bell, depending on how he feels about it.
That's my bell.
Kyle's
He's
the bell.
definitely,
I'm
he's
sorry.
definitely not going to ring
I'm
the bell.
sorry.
That's
it was
Greg's
over
bell.
by Kyle. Greg, who is, of course, the producer of our podcast. It is his purview. He's now taken it back, and there was no tug of war across the table. All right, speaking of the A6, Audi has announced that they're bringing the high-performance RS6 Avant to the U.S. For those not familiar with the European term, an Avant is what we call a station wagon. Naturally, because it's a wagon with a ton of horsepower, American auto journalists are overjoyed. But will American consumers feel the same? Probably not. But no, the all-road sold reasonably well.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to what we were saying with the 500L, 500X thing. It's weird here because you mentioned the all-road. That's a little bit more of a practical car, and this
Yeah.
is a much
This
higher
is much
performer.
more high performance.
This will be like an E63 wagon type deal. Audi probably wouldn't bring it here if they didn't know they could sell a few of them to make some money.
I have to say, I'm surprised. I mean, it's almost like a flag waver for them.
It's just one of those forbidden fruits that we hardly ever get, and I think we're just mostly excited because somebody's finally, Mercedes has done it for a while.
Well, when this show started eons ago, the hot thing were Volvo turbo wagons, and that's what everybody was gaga about, and they sold quite well.
Yeah. Well, my time's up. Somebody else go.
All right, I'll go then. I'm actually excited. I hope it does come to the States.
It's coming.
It's coming for
Confirmed
sure.
it.
Okay. Well, then I'm just excited. I used to have an S4 back in the day, and I remember the first time I saw someone blow by me on the highway with the S4 Avant, and I kind of was surprised. I looked over and went, man, I might like that more than my regular S4. And in actually recent days, I've been looking online for an old S4 Avant that I might want to pick up as a project car just to have some fun with. But I think it'll be really cool, especially with the RS6 Avant.
I didn't even mean to hit that.
Sorry, I think
I got an itchy trigger finger.
I'm not sure. To answer the will American consumers feel the same, I'm not so sure. I mean, it's one of those things where, obviously high performance fans, you can probably do better with a sedan, and utility buyers can do much better with an SUV. It's a very small market. It's similar like Cadillac CTS-V wagon. The few people that bought it, love them, but I think it's a very limited market.
So somebody goes into an Audi dealership. How does this? Do they go in to buy this? Is there any way an Audi salesman can talk them out of like an SQ5 and say, "Hey, hop into this RS"?
It's called money. Offer them a deal they can't refuse. The funny thing is that a lot of people look down their nose at Avants and wagons, but they're actually extremely easy to use. You've got a lower lift in the back when you want to load something. You can sort of fall down into them instead of crawling up into them.
We had that Jaguar XF Sport Brake.
Exactly.
Cool, man.
That was a cool.
Everyone loved driving it, and then you can't even find one at the dealer.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't even get them in because everyone just buys an SUV. They don't even want it. So
Yeah. Another Audi thing that's not on our list to cover, but I don't know if you're aware of it. There's a new company called Hollow Ride, and it's a spin-off of Audi. And what they're getting ready to do is they're offering now any car manufacturer a chance to put a system in their car that gives the backseat passengers virtual reality. You'll have the goggles, the whole 9 yards, and they'll have all sorts of games and different things to look at. But the secret of the system is that it is tied to the motion of the car to keep you from getting sick. They've done some trials with it. People have ridden around and written about it, and they were like 90 miles an hour on canyon roads, and nobody got sick. Hollow Ride and other people are starting to write about a revolution coming in in-car entertainment. Part of it made possible by the coming 5G wireless. And it's an interesting system. I've seen some pictures of people riding around, and they've got the goggles on, and they're having a great experience, but they're not getting sick. So,
like Tupac's going to be singing on the dashboard or something?
Tupac. Maybe. Anyway, something new coming, technology I had never heard of until about this week. Okay, we have a viewer question from Susanna. I bought a 2019 Kia Niro PHEV. Good for you. Back in June. She said our short-term review helped her make that decision. I hope you're happy with it. I'm curious how to maximize the mileage I get in balance between plugging in and driving in sport mode. The best mileage I've gotten is 51 miles per gallon, but usually it's in the 40s. I alternate between driving in electric and letting the battery wear down and then driving in sport until the battery is charged. Is that okay? It's okay, but the way that the EPA rules are written and when they do mileage estimates, you're not supposed to do anything except let the car drive in its normal mode. So we think, and we're not 100% sure because we've got one here, that you get your best mileage when you just start it up and drive away and let the car wear the battery down on its own, and you keep going. Now, 51 is, I think, without having the sheet in front of me, pretty close to what we've been getting after thousands of miles on ours.
Yeah, I mean, don't overthink it. That's the main. Just leave it in normal, and you got it right there in front of you. Their gauge.
Right.
There's an eco gauge. You keep it in the green, and you're going to be maxing it out no matter what mode the car's driving in.
I think, to be fair, I did leave out that she I think she has limited access to plugging in, so that's one thing that changes her scheme a little bit.
You don't want to be in sport strictly to charge the battery because that's just using your engine more as a generator than a power providing power, and that just kills your MPG. So yeah, just keep it on normal mode, and you're basically driving it as a normal hybrid at that point. So I'm not sure why if you didn't plan on plugging it in, a plug-in hybrid's not your best option.
But when you do plug it in, you're going to have basically the advantage of using zero gas. The more you plug it in, the less gas you'll use. We were talking to an engineer that makes a rival PHEV earlier today, and he lives like 10 miles from his work, and he basically hasn't bought gas in months. So sounds to me like whatever you were doing to get around 51 mpg, keep doing it. That's probably going to be your best bet. And who knows, maybe some of these pads that you'll be able to park over and charge your car will come along a little quicker than they have. Rant and rave time. Is anything sticking in anybody's craw? As they
Greg
say?
had a good one earlier.
I'll try to
Greg's
make it
got
short,
one.
sweet, and furious, just because
Short,
I
sweet,
think
and
we're
furious.
running up against time. But people who go to a grocery store or any store and park in the fire lane, which is, it's okay, I guess,
it
even though,
isn't.
well, hold on, no, let me continue. If you're going to drop somebody off real quick and get out of the fire lane, that's fine. But what I'm noticing more and more often is somebody comes up, parks, gets out of the car, only person in the car, and goes into the store for 5, 10.
You mean they just leave the car
Yes,
there?
no flashes or anything,
Yep.
which is just ridiculous.
They could probably get out sooner if the person in front of them didn't have 17 items and the 11 items are less than. It may not be their fault that it took them so long. But which angers you more, Greg? That or someone pulling through parking spaces? Which one angers you more?
Oh,
That's a good question.
I pull through parking spaces all the time.
Yeah. I've softened on my pulling through parking spaces.
Because now you're doing it
stance.
too.
So I'll go with the people who park in the fire lane. But still, you got to be careful when you pull through parking spaces.
To me, it's a matter of, come on, I understand if someone
on, man.
can't get around fairly well, and there's a lot of people have trouble walking and for various reasons, that they let somebody out. But at least, to actually just park there, so that someone that needs to load their groceries can't get around
Or
them?
God forbid a fire truck shows up and needs to pull in there.
That's really the height of inconsideration.
If I wasn't so scared of all these new fighting techniques and MMA, and I
guns.
would say something.
Right.
Yeah, guns is another.
Guns is another
I
one.
definitely
That's
don't want to
the
get
one
shot.
you gotta worry
But yeah, it's just like
I can run from somebody.
I'd
that's
say
gonna do a
something. I wasn't so
karate
scared of
chop.
people.
I would like to see that.
What, running? No.
No.
Silence.
You opened your mouth, and it came out. That's it.
We're out of time,
We're going to
folks.
close our mouths now. Thanks very much for everybody for participating. Brian Robinson, Greg Carlos, Kyle Scanlon, and Garrick Zykan remotely. We hope you'll join us for our next podcast. Anyway, we want a special thanks to our audio engineer, Jim Bigwood, who always makes us sound better than we have any right to sound, Greg Carlos, who's producer, and podcast creator, Bob Mixter. To all of you out there, thanks for watching Motor Week on public TV stations around the country and now on the Motor Trend cable network and all the other places we're out there on YouTube and out in the I have no idea how many places we are, but we really appreciate it.
All over the interwebs.
In the end, it's you that make us what we are, so thanks for being a part of Motor Week.
You've been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, and State Farm. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at motorweek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local TBS station.